Hello, everybody. Today is Saturday, June 2nd, and we are bringing you Block Digest number 103 at block height 525,639. Before we introduce everybody, let's give it up for the two lovebirds. Come on, everybody. It's a match made in heaven. But today, I guess, though, we have some strange dog-like animal that wandered into the studio. I'm not quite sure what it's doing here. Maybe it wants to say hi.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's a sheepdog. Come on.
Got Janine here as usual.
Yes, I'm definitely not the Wolf of Wall Street. I am a tree of keys.
And Mr. Nopara joining us from out in the city.
Hi, everyone.
Alrighty. All right, I got my joke in. I got to spotlight my meme. I'm happy now. Well, I guess this first story doesn't really directly have anything to do with Bitcoin, really, but I felt this was kind of important to really show and go over a little bit anyway, just to kind of stress for the entire choir here.
Why out real bad, man.
No. Okay.
Yeah. You're cutting in and out pretty hard.
All right, everybody, cover and BS. I have a VPN to turn off.
I mean, I can hear him fine. He wasn't cutting out for me, so it might be your wolf.
Oh, maybe it was me. All right, I'll shut off my wolf for a bit and see if that helps. Oh, looks like we lost Shinobi probably because I was having a bad connection.
Oh my God, it behaved. Google Hangouts behaved and didn't give me shit. Okay, wow. I'm amazed, guys.
Nice.
All right, back into the rant, though.
Shadow of the Wolf.
This story is the perfect example on not why just people want Bitcoin, not why people think it's a good idea, why people need it. So recently, a Albanian man who was a retired Albanian police officer who had moved to America, traveled here under a visa, gained his citizenship, and pretty much spent years in this country busting his ass saving money, decided that he was going to go visit his family back in Albania and pretty much help renovate some family property and was considering buying it. All right. He withdrew his life savings, I think around $59,000 from a bank. He labeled it clearly in packaging in his bag that it was cash. He had all of the relevant receipts from the bank to prove that this money was legally withdrawn from his account. He had numerous pieces of paperwork regarding the piece of property in Albania. And pretty much the reason that he was traveling with cash instead was apparently in Albania, it's pretty common for people who wire money there and then go withdraw it from the bank to pretty much be staked out and robbed after they've withdrawn the money from banks in Albania. And so he decided he was going to simply withdraw it in cash here and then, take the cash there, do what he was going to do. Okay, like it's a very rational reason. Now, he was getting on one flight from, I believe, Ohio to Newark, New Jersey, where he would then move internationally from that point to Albania. Now, I'm sure everybody knows that the United States government has very strict policies regarding taking large amounts of cash out of the country, and any amount over $10,000 has to be filed, declared, and paperwork submitted. Okay, but this is not until you are actually departing the United States. The policy is actually explicitly in like in this man's case, if you have multiple flights, not to file this paperwork until you are at the place you are departing the United States from. Entering the airport for the first leg, which was a domestic flight, with all of this clearly labeled, with all of the receipts showing his legal ownership and withdrawal of this money from the bank, all of the relevant paperwork regarding his family's property in Albania, he was stopped by the TSA, he was strip searched, he had all of his money seized, and they're now refusing to give it back. He was planning on actually filing the declaration paperwork in Newark after the first leg of the flight, as is legally required. And again, like I said, legally suggested that you do not file until you are at the place you are actually departing the country from. They took this man's entire life savings. When he finally received a receipt a month later of the assets seized, there was a few $100s missing. So people had already started skimming this money off. And they pretty much were like, here, if you let us keep a percentage of this, you can have it back now, or you're going to have to fight this in court. And despite all of the money being legally accounted for, despite not a single illicit substance found on his person, they accused him of structuring, money laundering, and drug smuggling. And they took this man's entire life savings. He followed every rule, regulation to a T. And they stole his money anyway. Like, this kind of shit is why we need Bitcoin. It's not just a good idea. It's not a nice thing to have. It is a necessity. And this is the perfect demonstration of it. This man followed all the laws. All of this money was legally acquired. He followed every invasive, probe up your ass regulation that the government required of him. And they still just stole his entire life savings. This legitimately pisses me off even thinking about this.
And what country was this? Was this like Estonia?
US.
Oh, the United States. I thought we were the good guys. What are you talking about? We take people's stuff without just cause? Nah, no way. This is Trump country, baby. We only do the right thing.
And I believe the article also mentioned, I've seen the same statistics since 2014 that the amount of, I don't know if it includes all assets or just monetary assets, but the amount of money that has, I think it is the amount of money that has been seized through civil asset forfeiture and never resulting in any kind of conviction or even charge of an actual crime. The amount of money that they have seized has exceeded the amount that has been lost in the entire year for common burglaries. So the police are literally stripping people of money illegally. I consider it illegal. If you don't if you take something from someone and you don't charge them with a crime, I consider that illegal. I don't care about this weird structuring with civil asset forfeiture. So they've basically been stealing from people more than your regular everyday burglar, which is just insane. But of course, they are the greatest burglar around in general.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, I hate Windows so much. Sorry. That's how long it took me to unmute because of just the wonderful user experience that's running a Windows box. Yeah, no, it's really insane how much money they get, and there's no due process or anything, right? If a police officer suspects you, and this is not just like at the border, this happens when you get pulled over for a speeding ticket, whatever. If the police officer thinks that you're doing anything suspicious, they can take whatever you have, and then you have to go back and fight through the courts to get it. And you know that making that first phone call to your attorney is $500, right off the bat. So if they seize 10 grand from you and you have a 20% chance of being able to convince the court that you're innocent, even though how do you prove innocence? That's a weird thing in the first place, right? No, this $10,000 was intended to pay for a car, not intended to pay for drugs. Prove it. Like it's an absurd concept. So, you know, if you want, you can fight it and you could try to prove your innocence, but most people are smart enough not to do that. And I wouldn't do that, right? If it was $5,000, I would know, well, they've stolen $5,000, but it's going to cost me 15 before I get before a judge. So I'm going to take my lumps and move on. And that's what they do. And they do it all the time. And if you have like, if they have enough reason, they'll take your car, right? And again, this is not enough reason that would like stand up before a jury. It's just like a plausible excuse that they can come up with. So they can take your vehicle, they can take any cash that's on you. If you're in the United States and you're driving around with, you know, $12,000 because you're thinking about investing in some business or something like that, you really need to be worried that they're just going to take your car, because they do that. There's been several cases of people just having cash, nothing else. There was one guy he was literally driving to invest in a restaurant. He had taken some money out, and I think it was like $12,000, and it was above the $10,000 limit. So they took his cash and they also took his vehicle, and, you know, $40,000 in legal fees later, I think maybe he won the case. I'm not sure, but it's you know, it's mafia protection money, you know, it's extortion. It's the classic racket that is government when the PR machine is stripped away. So sad, but that's where we live right now. It's the land of the free and home of the brave.
Yeah, but that's why I think it's important to not just roll over for this bullshit. I mean, like, this literally flies in the face of every foundational axiom that's supposed to underpin like our legal system, the fucking court system. Like this throws this throws the fucking Constitution out the window. This throws the presumption of innocence out the window. Like you use this like hyperbolisly in some situations, I think, but this is quite literally in this situation just thugs with fucking guns stealing your shit with complete impunity. Like, civil forfeiture is the most fucking asinine, ridiculous legal concept in this fucking country.
How do you feel about the Interstate Commerce Clause, or eminent domain, or the war on drugs, or the war in the Middle East, or weapons of mass destruction, or Iran-Contra, or, I mean, dude, how much do you have to be exposed to over time before you realize that the world that you think that you're living in is not the world that you live in? And if you behave like that, you will suffer the consequences. If you decide that you're going to fight stuff through the court system, pretending that the court system is anything more than a nice veneer on violence and public relations of mafia heads, you know, that you're going to get what you deserve.
No, but again, JW1, you kind of just conflated like legal things and then just completely illegal actions going on in the shadows. But like JW, if you want some kind of fucking cohesive, consistent thing, you need to actually involve yourself. One of the biggest reasons that our court system is as fucked as it is because nobody pays attention to the judges. Nobody votes for the judges. Everybody gets fucking up in arms and excited about who's going to be the new fucking president figurehead this year. Nobody pays attention to the judges. They're elected. You vote for them.
So I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is that voting is in and of itself an absurd concept. And I am involved. Like, that's why I'm here right now. That's why I invest in Bitcoin. I'm sure Nopara is going to say the same thing, right? I don't picture Nopara out carrying a sign and being more effective than when he just sits down and writes privacy code. And if that's not like blatantly clear to you, I don't know what we're doing here.
I wanted to say that think about what would happen if we would have to vote for Bitcoin core developers.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure we'd get some really, really talented.
Well, it's not like you're being a little conflationary here. Like, if you want to boil down any legal system, public or private, it does not matter. It either comes to a vote or somebody being put in charge of deciding something. That's what it is. And the entire legal process is delegating things, whether it's to an individual or a group who votes, it doesn't matter. It is a process of delegation. And you are not going to just sit there and have things magically work unless you involve yourself in that process of delegation.
No, you're completely wrong. It does not all boil down to a vote. Democracy is a relatively new concept where the majority gets to screw over the minority. Instead, we can have something called private property, and we can have a court system that enforces private property. And that's what we're working towards. We're not working towards another version of democracy that's just smaller or bigger, or
it's not as simple as enforces private property. It's, well, this specific situation is being dealt with now. Either a jury or its equivalent, or a judge or its equivalent, is going to decide what happens. They step in and they get to decide in that situation what happens with the property involved.
How much do you think he's going to spend on legal fees?
Being delegated.
How much do you think he'll spend on legal fees?
I'm not talking about this individual situation. Whether
okay, so we're not going to talk about the individual circumstance and injustice.
In its abstract form, it is delegating things. That's what it is.
Well, enjoy that
delegating
fantasy.
A decision about other people's things. It's not a fantasy, JW. And Kapistan's fucking completely privatized court system is an individual delegated to decide the outcome involving other people's property. That's what it is. That's what conflict resolution is.
Well, I mean, I don't know what you mean by delegating, but in a private legal system, you're just paying for a service. And if you decide that you don't like that service, you can stop paying for it and pay for another service. And if you screw somebody over, if you take their stuff or you hurt somebody, you can expect either their parents, their friends, or the court system and security system that they pay for to kick in your front door and drag your ass out.
So exactly, you are in sovereignty.
There's no voting. There's no PR.
Like your ability to decide what happens with your property when you are before a court, private, public, whatever, is gone. Somebody is in charge of making a decision, and whether you agree with that situation or not, it is going to be enforced. That is what a court is. And whether it's private or public is completely tangential to that.
Well, I don't know, man. I'm a little lost at this point, but all I can say is if you believe that it's a good idea to involve yourself in courts and politics in the United States, then that is exactly the opposite of the cypherpunk movement ethos. We don't think that that's a good use of time, and we think it's a much better use of time to write code and build solutions and put them in the hands of the market. So, it really does come down to the political means or the economic means. And I am not a fan of the political means, and I don't think it's effective. But you can play that game if you want. I just don't think it's going to work out well for you. And
no, again, we're not talking about whether this person should fight this or not at this point. We're talking about what a court is abstractly.
All right. Well, I thought we were talking about whether this guy should fight it or whether I should fight it if I get pulled over and they seize 12 grand out of my car. And I'm not. I mean, I think in order to have the bigger, broader discussion of how private courts work and whether they're a delegation or whatever, I think that's probably a whole episode, man.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe we can record a talk on that sometime soon. But
yeah, good idea.
In interest of not eating up half the show, are you this? You want to take over and take us along into this next update, Janine?
Yeah. So it's not really much of a story. It's just something I was looking at, kind of branching off of the whole discussion between Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, and just one of the things, I mean, I noticed this several months ago when I wrote a blog post about it, but if you actually go to any block explorer or, I mean, I guess it's really hard to do it through your own full node, so you have to take every block explorer with a grain of salt. But if you go to most block explorers and if it has the search functionality that you can actually look at the sizes of blocks, you'll notice very quickly that because this all kind of came up because people are still saying that Bitcoin has a 1 megabyte block size limit, which is absolutely false. Because if you literally go to a block explorer, you go to Bitcoin, as you can do in Blockchair, And you can also it allows you to under the options you can click on the size and you can say look at blocks that are equal to or less than a certain size or equal to or more than a certain size. And what I found was that in Bitcoin, at least, I looked at this yesterday, there are 29,500 Bitcoin blocks that are over 1 megabyte. That's a lot. Compared to Bitcoin Cash, when you do the same query for number of blocks that are above 1 megabyte, not including 1 megabyte, by the way, you get 1,400, which is like 21 times fewer blocks than Bitcoin has. If you look at blocks that are greater than or equal to 2 megabytes, Bitcoin has about 9, which is not surprising because right now it's breached the 2 megabyte benchmark a few times, but not very many, although obviously it shows we can go over 2 megabyte. So the idea that we have a 1 megabyte block size limit is just completely ridiculous. All you have to do is look at block sizes that have happened in the past. If you go to Bitcoin Cash blocks, you'd think, well, since they've now have 32 megabytes for block space, you'd think they would at least have like a ton of blocks that are at least 2 megabytes. You find that there's about 350, which is pretty low. So basically, that's the total number of blocks that are 2 megabytes or more, which is not very much. If you go to blocks that are more than 4 megabytes, you only get 184. And if you go to blocks that are more than 8 megabytes, you get 0. There has literally not been a single block mined yet, as far as I know, since yesterday. There has not been a single Bitcoin Cash block mine that is more than 8 megabytes. They pretty much all stop at 7 or 7.9. And of those, I think there are less than 100 that are in the 7 megabyte range. It might even be fewer than that. So
did they already hard forked 32?
Yeah, I think so. I heard that they did because it was mentioned as when in the last show when we were talking about how they've supposedly enabled all these smart contract opcodes, we were discussing, that Bitcoin.com had mislabeled them as a new innovation, and they were just, tree signatures and opcodes that Bitcoin has had before they came along. So apparently now they have 32 megabytes, as far as I know. But yeah, I mean, they have all of this capacity and no one actually uses it. Their average block size is, I think, somewhere between 100 kilobytes and 500 kilobytes, which is half a megabyte. So they're not using their capacity at all. Bitcoin, supposedly limited to 1 megabyte still, is breaching 2 megabytes on a few occasions. So just anytime anyone says that there's a 1 megabyte block limit, like, sorry, you were so, idealistic in being against SegWit that you didn't realize it was also a block size increase and not just a transaction malleability fix. And it's just wrong information. It just doesn't, it's this line that it's getting old now. And anyone who even, takes a glance at a block explorer and looks at block sizes can see that Bitcoin on average has way larger block sizes than Bitcoin Cash does.
But memo cache, block press, these blocks are going to be exploding in size. Just you wait.
Yeah, I'm so sick of Bcash. Aren't you guys just totally tired of it? I cannot wait until it's no longer a topic. I cannot believe that they've managed to maintain any sort of price either. I don't really understand a ton about how price manipulation works, but gosh, it just seems like it would be a lot lower by now. And the only thing that I can think is that there's still a ton of Bitcoin whales that just don't want to compromise their privacy by dumping their Bitcoin Cash or their Bcash.
There's also a lot that are waiting for the year to pass, so they only have to pay long-term capital gains.
Oh, that's interesting. Huh. All right, cool. Hopefully that's the case. I would love to see this thing come to an end just because it's so boring to talk about. It's so stupid. But yeah, I am glad to see that there's a ton of blocks that are above 1 megabyte. I'm really surprised how often people ask me that too, or still believe that. Like, oh, do you think that we're even going to be able to scale beyond 1 megabyte? It's like, what do you like? You know, how indoctrinated do you have to be to not know that that's already happening right now? Like, you have a very carefully curated Twitter feed.
Mm-hmm. All right, random tangent. I hate bringing my own Twitter drama into the show, but I have to with this one. So I'm sure everybody has noticed Reina Nakamoto kind of pushing back against a lot of comments about the pictures from the latest Calvin Ayre boat party. And pretty much I got dragged into a thread, and she's had me blocked for I don't know how long. Like I literally just followed her one day to, oh, here's a Bcash supporter, kind of pay attention to what she thinks. And then I'm just blocked one day and have no idea why. So Mr. Hoddle pretty much asked her like why I'm blocked and why she just blocked somebody else, because she just goes around blocking all kinds of Bitcoin supporters out there. And she says it's because I made a nasty comment to her once. I have literally never directly interacted with her ever. Like, she's just outright lying. And it's so transparently obvious that they're just trying to insulate themselves so that nobody can actually offer an articulate counter argument. Like, you just block everybody who can actually destroy your argument. And then as far as Twitter's presentation to the public is concerned, like, they only see their argument and no strong counter arguments.
What are you talking about?
She's some woman who's active in the Bitcoin Cash community, but it's not just her. Like, this is a common tactic that I see like all over that side of the fence. Like, if somebody shows that they can make articulate counter arguments, they block them, and then they just can't respond with that kind of, like, you know, visibility that comes with their main account. They would have to make a sock puppet, and then, oh, hey, like, you know, it's just literally trying to make it as impossible as you can to even offer a counter argument in the first place. Like, that's how this is going so far.
Well, you know, looking at your Twitter conversations, I can't help, but I cannot really blame anyone who is blocking you and on a different opinion, because you can be really hard on people, you know.
That is cold, Nopara. Okay. I offered the carrot first, and then okay, that was cold. That was.
I think
cold.
JW is playing with the laughing animation for his wolf.
I'm having a seizure. That was great.
But no, it's like no part. I have like never interacted with this person a single time, and she's going around saying that like I'm saying nasty things to her. Like, it's just an outright lie. Like, I have literally never interacted with her a single time, and you can see that just searching.
I'm sure that's true, man. I'm sure that's true. I mean, these guys are getting paid to fleece people, so contrary opinions, even if you were sweet, because you know you are nice on occasion, at least when the conversation gets started. So I'm sure that's true.
Here is what I think happened. I think there is some BCH blacklist of who to block on Twitter, and you happen to be on it. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you're Shinobi. You're probably on all the Twitter blockchains.
I see what you did there. I see what you did.
That is the term that people. I was so confused one time because I saw a bunch of people talking about blockchains, and I was like, "What are you talking about? Where's the blockchain?" And they actually meant like Twitter block lists. It was really funny. My recommendation though for you is Like, I feel like one of your issues is that you get into these long Twitter threads with Mike in Space and Krista Rose, and they are just giant sinkholes of time wasting. I've just noticed that. I'm sorry. They just waste time. I have not ever seen anything really that they say in these threads and be like, oh yeah, that's worth spending 5 minutes of my time like reading and responding to. They're just huge time sinks. And I tried to like, I got into a conversation with Bryce Wiener of all people, and he was doing the same thing. He was literally telling me to fight him. In the first tweet that he responded to me, I was like, I am not fighting you. You are, he ran a scam coin back in 2014. He was a big supporter of Change Tip, and I still think he has like a chip on his shoulder for that, for anyone who is criticizing Change Tip. And a bunch of other things. He has a criminal record, and he got into a fight with our favorite Bitcoin scammer, Morgan Rockwell. So, yeah, some of these people, it's just because people just follow them because apparently they just follow them to laugh at them, and otherwise they're huge time wasters.
I think I want somebody to write up like a guide on how to do Twitter propaganda, or how to shape communities and do all of the stuff that I feel like I see happening. And one of those things is, you're like exactly right. I'm pretty sure that there's a certain group of guys that includes Mike and Space and DeRose and these guys that they just speak nonsense. But they try to be funny, right? And so they can kind of like keep an audience, but they're just constantly sand in the gears of any intelligent conversation. It doesn't matter, what it is. Anything that it could at all help somebody understand how Bitcoin works, you can guarantee that one of those jokers is going to be in there. And it wouldn't at all surprise me. I mean, it's possible that this is just like a natural thing that occurs, right? But if I was going to design a system to sort of shape the debate, that would be a really good element, right? Like, I'm just going to pay 3 or 4 or 5 guys that are kind of like funny. They'll be the comedian guys, and their whole job will be just to frustrate anybody on the other side, and to make it difficult for those people to speak in a way that's not so aggressive that they get blocked, right? Like, you got to balance that. That would be just a smart move.
I don't think any of them are getting paid at all. I mean, like Chris DeRose is literally like, if you've like watched any of like the old BU stuff and like June Sith and him, like Chris literally came into the space to get famous. Like, that's his goal. Like, he just stirs up controversy to get attention, and it's really weird because like I never would like seek out interactions with Chris, but he would constantly tag me and ping me and drag me into threads like on Twitter. And like I'll engage with anybody, you know what I mean? I don't block people except for bots. And like, he would constantly though drag me into these threads and then try to paint this fucking image like I am obsessed with him and following him around and harassing him. And it's like, I would never interact with him unless he pings me and drags me into an interaction. And then he ended up blocking me when I called him out for it. Like, it was weird.
Yeah, I'm not saying necessarily that these guys are getting paid. I would probably bet on it. Like, I'd probably say 65% chance that they are. So I if I had the opportunity, I'd bet a couple $100 on it probably. But more importantly, I think I would do that, right? Like, if I was what's that?
You have an opportunity to bet that Chris is not getting paid with me.
Well, I mean, how would we know, right? Like, how do we resolve that?
That's a good.
But no, I mean, if we can think of if we can think of a way to resolve it, I would bet on it. But yeah, I think the thing is that I would do that if I was on that side, right? It just, if I made a top 10 list of activities that I was going to do to push a false narrative, one of them would be to have people like that to just slow down the opposition, right? And just cause minor problems. I would probably have people that were all across the spectrum, from like most crazy gosh, what is it? Bilderberg Group conspirators, right? Like telling that narrative all the way to the most appealing, like, you know, and I'm not saying Naomi's paid, but she's probably the most likable, you know, most sort of on the edge person that is not anti-Bitcoin Cash, right? So I would say I would have people that hit at least 5 or 6 points along that spectrum, and have those guys be pretty active. I think that would be a good use of funds. So, you know, I don't know if that's what's happening, but whether those guys are doing it, I'd be surprised if that wasn't, if something along those lines, maybe slightly less sophisticated, wasn't happening.
You know,
it would just be good marketing, right?
You know, it's so interesting to see from an outsider perspective, like when you, GW, and Shinobi get to each other's throat on topics I'm totally not interested in. It's kind of the same, but you're doing with Chris. I think Chris is a wonderful guy, and you know the things that you're talking about is what you are arguing about are things that you can't really do anything about that. So it's not like a question to decide, but it's, you know, politics, and like getting angry on each other because of politics, while basically you kind of have the same opinion on every technical issue. It's, I don't know, I don't feel that's very smart thing to do.
Well, I don't really care about
like
like the Rose, right? Like I don't really care about those guys. I blocked them. Like that's what I did because they were wasting my time. But what I'm talking about is just, it's a more interesting question as to whether this is a like a concerted effort, whether those guys are involved or not, right? Because I don't care. But I do think it's interesting whether this is sort of whether this is happening, right? Like if that's not interesting, that's cool. But it's interesting to me because I like to know how scams work and how they propagate. And I have a feeling that there's a lot of more sophisticated stuff going on that I don't know about. Like I don't really understand how the price manipulation works. I mean, I do at a high level, right? But I'd be more curious about that. I'm a little curious about how you shape a group of people so you can fleece them on Twitter and Reddit, and I'm sure there's variations in that technique. So if anybody ever does find anything written about that, I'd be interested to read it.
Well, it's like, you know, it's not like, and again, like I do not think like these people are getting paid, like Chris and Mike, like no JW, but it's like no part. It's about like how people choose to associate with other people, like how they choose to judge like what information other people put forward. And just point blank at this, like I have seen so many examples of just Chris being completely knowingly manipulative. Like I know that he is aware of something and he pretends he is not and misrepresents something. And he does this constantly. And I don't care what his motives are. Again, I think he is just trying to stir controversy to get attention. But it, like, I see somebody who is being misrepresentative and manipulative. And I think that is important to say. Like, to not, like, you shouldn't just let things go uncontested when you perceive somebody knowingly being manipulative.
Well, you know, maybe it's just you who are feeling that, because he's that kind of guy who's working all the time, like 12 hours a day, and reading books, and maybe goes ahead and implements his concepts, what he's reading in the books, too soon, and you just don't feel him to be real, because he's using some conversational tactics that you don't approve. I probably don't notice. Yeah, probably that's what's going on.
But it's not conversational tactics. It's he will knowingly misrepresent what somebody else is saying. Like, that's not a conversational tactic. That's lying about the argument somebody else.
That's his tactic. I mean,
No,
he's talking to the audience,
like,
not to you.
Can you see like where I'm coming from? When I like, if I say Nopara thinks that Bitcoin should be completely transparent and we should work with police officers to catch criminals, like that's not a conversational tactic. That's me lying about your stance on something. That's me lying about what you have said.
Yeah, I guess I can see your point.
But to, I don't know, segue
Hey,
out of
I got a great segue. I just crossed 3,000 Twitter followers, so I'm launching number 3 coin today. Number 3 coin is it's going to take all the best parts of Bitcoin, which is number 1 coin, and all the best parts of number 2 coin. So think of it as a big bucket of number 2 and number 1, and get yours today.
And on to Visa, Junior.
Yes, buckets of shit. And so for anyone who, especially if you are in Europe, you might have noticed yesterday that if you had gone to the store and tried to buy things, or gone to a restaurant, or perhaps purchased a train ticket, anything to do with merchant processing, your transactions were probably not working because Visa was down across the entire continent of Europe, and including the UK, which is still kind of in Europe, but not really.
Sounds like they need a blockchain.
I don't know about that. Visa, it wouldn't make sense for a company to run a blockchain. But if you want to show some of the tweets, there were literally some stores. Also, Brett Scott, because he's written a lot about cashless societies, and so he pointed out this was actually a picture taken by someone who was outside of a Sainsbury's. I think if you go to the next tweet, because this image that BBC used, I think, is from Sainsbury's in the UK. And apparently they had people standing outside saying, sorry, can't use your card right now because they're not working. You have to bring in cash only to buy groceries. So that's how bad it was. And they figured out early on that it was probably something to do with the merchant API, because I heard that normal bank transfers or ATM withdrawals were still working, which means that obviously that means the entire network wasn't down. It was just a specific portion, which is probably merchant processing. But that's still a big deal because, it was Friday. So it was, a lot of people, when they go home for the weekend, they buy a bunch of food. So wasn't the best time for Visa to not be working. So that was pretty bad. And I believe they resolved it within 6 hours or so, because they made a blog post yesterday saying that they resolved the technical issue that occurred. The issue was the result of a hardware failure within one of our European systems and is not associated with any unauthorized access or cyber attack. Visa Europe's payment system is now operating at full capacity, and they can use Visa for any purchases at ATMs as they normally would. So, yeah, lots of people I saw were responding to Visa Europe tweets about this, saying like, hey, Bitcoin is still running. It has not been down. It's been up 99.99999% of the time. So, yeah, if that's not something you see in Bitcoin, where you have a whole geographic region cut off, from a payment network. You don't have that happen in Bitcoin unless the state is, putting a lot of effort into blocking those sorts of transactions. But that's kind of impossible to do because there's so many ways that you could relay transactions to other parts of the network outside a country if your state is trying to ban it. So, yeah, Visa Empire strikes out.
Yep. And I mean, it's like this just perfectly demonstrates like you don't want important infrastructure just centrally ran. I mean, it's the entire logic behind the internet. Like, imagine if each country just had one place they connect into to reach the rest of the internet. Like, you'd be asking for that system to collapse and fail. Like, you need that redundancy, you need that distribution, and like you're not really going to get that except through huge like monopoly situations, because it's the cost of that redundancy is like, okay, if one person's trying to do it, they're going to have to foot the bill for all of that. as opposed to something distributed where you just have each like agent, I guess, like dealing with their own shit.
You know, there's a very interesting comment in the comment section. Spencer, guessing that even at the worst moments yesterday, Visa was still processing more than 7 transactions per second.
You know what?
That is true. I'm
touche,
sure
Spencer.
that
Touche.
I'm sure that's definitely true. But you know, Bitcoin, you can't compare it to Visa because we're not done building it yet. Wait until Lightning is up and running and we've got 500,000 transactions a second happening.
Don't double down. We have to learn how to laugh on ourselves.
That's true. Yeah, the amount of money, I'm sure somebody's going to calculate it and say how much damage was caused. But you think about like just an individual shop owner selling hot dogs yesterday that doesn't have a very big margin after he pays rent and all the other things, and he has all of these expenses, and maybe he makes, I don't know, 20% or something if he's running a really good business. Being down for 6 hours if it's one of the busier days, that could completely destroy his whole profit margin for the week or the month. So thanks to Visa, now he's working for free for some period of time. Multiply that by every single person across Europe that was affected. It's an incredible amount of damage that it actually does. And it's easy to think, oh, it's not that big of a deal, it's only 6 hours. This guy is now poorer, right? The guy that was selling hot dogs is now poorer. He's going to be able to invest in less. Better tools are going to be built less, right? When you multiply that enough, that results in basically all of civilization moving back in time a couple hours, right? And a couple hours isn't maybe that big of a deal, but it can be the difference between a lot of people living and dying. So it really is not cool that we're that dependent on Visa and that it's that unreliable. It's gonna, it's good that we have a new solution, and hopefully Visa can hold things together long enough for us to replace them. But as yesterday shows, it's very damaging.
Yeah,
The
I'm actually
standard is coming.
Yeah, I'm actually reading a book right now, Caves of Steel by Isaac Asimov, because I haven't been reading as much as I liked. And there's a really good passage in there about how, when you scale up civilization to, all of these interdependencies with cities, like cities, eventually they reach a point where they're not self-sustainable anymore. And if you have even 1 hour of disruption where you cannot get goods into the city and waste out of the city, or at least recycle it effectively, that can like really destroy a city that is constantly at millions of little interconnected bits are happening at every second. And if that stops, like that causes real problems when you have that many people in such a small, area. And also, one of the things that I noticed, obviously, I wasn't too worried about, for example, Germany is still very cash-based. And so the sign that, the Sainsbury's employee was holding outside kind of amused me, because at least in most parts of Germany, if you walk in, some of them won't even actually take card, especially in areas that don't have either great internet access, or there just aren't, there's just a culture of using cash for everything. So seeing signs that say cash only are actually a common occurrence in European countries like Germany, where, the digital payment companies either don't take an interest in, integrating that country's merchants into their systems, or there is actively a culture of using cash for everything. So if you're lucky to live enough in a European country that is mostly cash-based, yesterday was no big deal for you. It was just business as usual.
Mm-hmm. Ah, boy. Cash is king. All right, I don't know. You guys ready to move along to probably the most skeleton-y story today? yeah, China is gonna loosen up on Bitcoin. Everybody, they're not gonna go crazy. They're gonna stop disallowing exchange. No, like so, like this story's kind of been making the rounds lately about China potentially loosening up and deciding to regulate Bitcoin instead of try and stomp it out. This is pretty much just like a English language Chinese newspaper. Taking a comment from some local official and then spreading it around. Like this is no actual statement from the fucking Chinese government itself. There is no actual legitimate source here. And considering that this is coming from a Chinese paper that is specifically English language to spread news to foreigners, I seriously can't help but wonder if this is just like some attempt, like, can we still influence the market, guys? Like, is anybody even paying attention to what we say anymore?
Yeah, I when I saw the headline, I was a little hopeful, and then when I looked at it, I was like, it's more of the same. But too bad. Hopefully, there will be some more movement there soon, and China will loosen up. But then again, I'm still not even sure how much the existing regulations are slowing things down in China. I'd like to talk to somebody that's actually there to find out how they feel things are going. But yeah, more bad reporting. Big surprise.
I mean, it's like if they don't transition into trying to just ban it outright, I see it going the same kind of direction that things are going in Venezuela. Like, you just have government officials stealing mining equipment from citizens, like setting that stuff up off the books themselves. It's just like the corrupt government officials that are like amassing Bitcoin and running these mining farms at this point. And I mean, like, if China doesn't try to just push it out completely at some point, I don't see them taking any other route than that. It would just be completely contrary to everything else that government is doing. Dun dun dun. All right, so got that out of the way. No Par had some stuff he wanted to talk about. Some comments regarding the Japanese ban from the other day on privacy coins, and then some updates on ZeroLink.
Yes, we talked about Monero, that Japan banned Monero, and I thought it's not that bad. It's actually good for Monero because every transaction in Monero is by default private, but the links doesn't just magically disappear. You still know the links, that what you are mixing where, and exchanges do know the links too. And if you happen to be mixing together with one exchange or two exchange transaction, then that's going to be logged, and obviously your transaction is going to be de-anonymized too. So it's the less exchange using Monero, the more private Monero is. Something like that. What do you think of this?
I mean, it makes sense to me. You're pretty much limiting like all the metadata points that you can use. Because I mean, like, people think that like you can't do graph analysis on Monero, but you definitely can. It's just a lot more obscured with like the amounts blinded and with the ring signatures obscuring things. And like, the more you obscure things, that just means you need more data or metadata points to kind of counteract that obfuscation. And I mean, like, I think you're like dead on. Like the less exchanges, the less points of KYC, the more metadata you're stripping away from them, and being more obfuscated by default than Bitcoin. Like even if like Bitcoin, if you tried to make the same argument about Bitcoin, like it would be valid, but it wouldn't be as good or as effective as it would be for Monero, because it's just like slightly more obfuscated by default.
No, there was a time I was worried about Monero, that my Monero, that web wallet is doing too much transactions. At least that was my worry, because obviously my Monero is like defeating the purpose of Monero. So my Monero, well, it's run by Fluffy, I guess, and I think I can trust him that he's not looking at what transactions are happening. But you are not private if you're using my Monero. So my Monero could just decide to log everything, because that's how web wallets work. And then it turned out it's only 5% of the transactions are my Monero transactions. And actually there was a guy who he's an interesting guy. He kind of hates Monero and likes Monero. So he's a core contributor, but only contributes to Monero things those are bad for Monero. And so he had all the incentives to came up with some fake data, but he didn't. So I guess he could figure out that it's about 5% what my Monero is doing, 5% of all Monero transactions, which is fine. But these services, those are not privacy oriented. Go to Monero, and it backfires a lot that Monero is private by default, because you are mixing together with people who don't care about privacy. You want to mix together with the worst criminals of the world, because they are the ones who are going to die to not get their mixes de-anonymized. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. The thing that it made me think of is just all the ways that we really need privacy to be on the coin that we use for money. Like it's not great to have it be some altcoin that doesn't have very much volume. We want as many people using it, and we want it to be as private and on by default and easy to use and all of those things as possible, or it just doesn't matter. So I understood what you were saying, in the sense that you were saying it actually improved the privacy, but that just made me think of all the ways that its privacy sucks. So so don't buy Monero.
Oh, well, you're officially a Monero scammer, JW. All right. So to move along, so what's going on with ZeroLink, Nopara? I saw you put out a tweet today.
Oh yes, this is perfect timing. We were just shitting on something, and now we expose my motivation. Okay, so I created ZeroLink about a year ago. It was a research, and this is how to make Bitcoin transactions anonymous. And this was based on in a 2013 post of Gregory Maxwell, but he hidden some crucial information in the FAQ. Gregory Maxwell is always writing walls of text, and this few lines was hidden, that how to make coin join transactions in a way that completely private and cannot be stolen by third parties. And yeah, that's what I was working on during the last year. In December, I wanted to release it, but we found too much bugs, and then we figured we should get back to put the building blocks down in a more stable way. And now we got to the point that we deployed the backend of the software, and all we have to do is build a user interface, and there is finally a way that you can use Bitcoin in an anonymous way, and not like anonymous like Monero or coin or join market or this kind of anonymous because this system requires 100 peers, so your anonymity set is going to be 100, unlike other crypto systems when 2 to 10 is the maximum what they can do. Yeah, I'm very excited about this. Worked a lot on this, and very soon it's gonna release wallet Wasabi coming soon.
Awesome, man. Awesome. That's great. I'm glad that you weren't engaging in politics and you were doing something useful.
He's engaging in politics right now. He's advocating to the public. Boom!
All right.
All right. Slide along. So, very recently, you can use that as a final thought, Janine. Okay, I'll load the thought at the end. No. End thoughts. Okay, right now, the National Assembly in South Korea has put forward a proposal to unban initial coin offerings. And pretty much what they're proposing in this is just the kind of the route the SEC is, it seems to be heading. Have the requirement for, investor protection provisions, legal compliance, and as long as you can check all of those boxes, you would be allowed to ICO. And yeah, this is a pretty big about face. And I mean, I'm not like I'm not really paying attention in depth to like any South Korean news sources specifically, but I've been trying to keep an eye out to see what's going on with that Supreme Court case challenging the entire regulatory regime set up in South Korea. But based on this, I'm going to kind of speculate here that this is part of the government kind of trying to find a middle ground there, or rather than like deal with the potential of the entire like regulatory system they've set up just being slapped down by the Supreme Court as unconstitutional. And I mean, regardless of whether or not that speculation's like correct, it's I don't know. It's with how much like it fucking worried me with the privacy coin ban in Japan. It's kind of nice to see another country in that region, even with something as stupid, in my opinion, as ICOs, rethinking the harshness of the regulations they've started crafting. And I mean, like I don't know, it's kind of weird and hard to keep track of all the different countries and the ways that individual regulations are swinging back and forth. But this swing is in a positive direction.
I'm in South Korea, so we can have some field report in 3 a.m. in the morning right now. I can just grab someone and
go up to a random person and be like, do you support legalizing ICOs?
Legalizing ICOs. Yeah, so, people don't speak English here at all. Not even a thank you or, okay, probably they understand that, but not much. I noticed that Bitcoin is really big here. I think it's not only the news, but it's the Air Bitcoin or something like that. It's really big. There was a guy in the gym, and he was 70 something years old, and he was like, "Okay, let's go drink a beer." So we ended up. Was before the last episode, actually. We ended up going around Korea, and I just mentioned him at the first beer that, oh, I'm actually working on Bitcoin, and I noticed wherever we went to like 5-6 places and talked to a lot of people. I mean, he was talking, I didn't, and he was always mentioning Bitcoin, and everyone, the most uneducated people knew about Bitcoin and understood probably understood it. They were talking in Korean, but yes, so I think Bitcoin is really, really big here. Interesting. see.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Mhm.
That's really cool. I'm encouraged by that for sure. In the US, it's weird. Like there's a lot of people that have heard the name, but then there's a lot of people that like I don't know. This was only like a few months ago. Maybe it was 4 months ago. My wife was totally embarrassed, but I was like, I got to do this. I just asked 3 random people at the mall if they had heard of Bitcoin, and one of them was like vaguely had heard of it, and I think maybe one of them had heard of it, and the other one had like no idea what I was talking about. Like had like never even heard the name. It's really strange because I know it's on the news. You know, yeah. So
That person doesn't watch fake news.
Maybe not. Well, they were a business owner, so maybe they were too busy to be watching CNBC show Ripple all day. But it is like shocking to me how few people have heard of it. I mean, I had heard of it 4 years ago and vaguely knew what it was. I just didn't think it would work, but it's surprising how many people have not heard of it or like have very, very little interest in it at all.
You know, and oh my God, like think about old stories, like no one knew about, everyone was looking at you like you're crazy. Once I was in Taiwan, I just moved to a new apartment and I went out to drink and I forgot where I was living. And I ran out of money. I had Bitcoin. So I went to like 50 people to, hey, can you buy some Bitcoin or something? And no one understood anything. And I don't know. I guess I needed, I don't really remember, but it was in 2015 and I needed some money to find my apartment back or get some into, I don't remember. But, you know, no one knew about Bitcoin at all. Crazy.
Mm-hmm. I don't think, we're like, I don't know, we're all in a bubble. We just assume everybody knows about it. But like aside from like, places like Japan or like South Korea, where you really just have a much faster like social penetration of like information and new things. Like most people on the planet probably have absolutely no clue it exists, what it is, like why it exists. It's like the person who doesn't give 2 shits about like space and sending people there, like not having a fucking clue what Elon Musk is doing or like the latest thing SpaceX has done. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not really into SpaceX, but I just heard about this awesome new currency called Hobo Nickel, and it just sounds amazing. It's got some really neat features, so I'm looking forward to see how it competes with number 3 coin.
What's the selling point?
I don't know. I just heard the name and it cracked me up just a couple minutes ago. Somebody sent me a message about it. So Hobo Nickel, shout out to Hobo Nickel. At least you guys have a fun name.
It's an investment advice from GW.
Are you sure that Hobo Nickel is not like a nickname for Dash or something? Because I saw Max Kaiser giving out Dash to hobos once. Maybe they renamed Dash to Hobo Coin.
No, apparently it's like ranked number 992 on some list. I haven't clicked on the link, but so he said, no, it's actually a real coin and it exists. And yeah, but that's really funny. I guess that's the whole, that's the PR campaign of Dash, right? Is like giving out little bits of Dash to hobos. So I think that's a more appropriate name.
Yeah, they do that because they want to make up for the fact that the creators mined like the 4th or 3rd of it. They did a pre-mine when it was released. So there's like only a few people that have a bunch of Dash.
And some hobos.
Dash.
D-Trash.
Oh man. All right. Well, I don't know. You guys want to? I'm gonna try to bang out 3 stories here in a row that are all loosely connected, so we can actually try to hit our time target today. What's everybody think about that?
Yes, good goal.
All right. Rapid fire shinobi rambling. Bittrex has actually finalized an official bank deal right now, and they're going to be opening up USD pairs against, I think Bitcoin, Tether, and True USD, the one of the latest Tether competitors. And for right now, the fiat access is only going to be available to corporate customers in Washington, California, New York, and Montana. But they're going to be kind of working out the regulatory issues to bring that to retail consumers. I think this is kind of the first step in a big change in the dynamic of altcoin markets. And like just the second you start having more like fiat liquidity against them and more places offering direct fiat pairings for these altcoins, that pressure that keeps everything coupled to Bitcoin is going to change in a big way. And with Poloniex kind of going through the whole circle reformation, that's going to be an issue. And then also Huobi is apparently going to be expanding into Brazil. They've had a bunch of people see Huobi officials kind of handing out cards and networking at a local industry event, and have apparently actually set up an office and started trying to hire people in the country. So part of why that is happening is right now the rate of growth of people opening crypto exchange accounts is outpacing people opening accounts to trade traditional securities at this point. I mean, like, you've had one exchange, Foxbit, like quadruple its user base from 100,000 to 400,000 in the last year. And there was also a my brain is not good at memorizing places in text. Okay, Atlas Quantum, that had explosive growth in terms of the amount of money they've been managing. Last year, like, they were managing $1 million. This year, they have up to 3,500 million under their management, literally just doing nothing but price arbitrage between different Bitcoin exchanges. And I mean, like, this is like the market in Brazil is fucking exploding. And you have Huobi, which since the exchange closure in China has been trying to rapidly expand everywhere, kind of looking to open their doors there. You've got, things like Bittrex and Poloniex coming up on the horizon that are radically going to alter the dynamic of like the altcoin markets, at least ones that are paired individually against fiat. And like, just the entire market dynamic is just fucking changing faster than I can really keep up with. And I mean, a lot of people might just think, oh boy, that's something for traders to worry about. But like, this is going to have consequences that affect the entire ecosystem in general. The more the market kind of matures and changes and builds itself out in new ways.
It's not only bad news from that perspective, that point of view, that Bitcoin will be less of a unit of value because of this, but I'm not even sure that's true. But the problem is, it's good that Bittrex added a new feature that's very useful and a lot of people is going to use it. But I don't know, you can see with Poloniex, you can see with other exchanges, those were crypto only, the shady exchanges. They went legal, and whenever they go legal, all these know your customer, all these regulation bullshit starts to come in, and they are not shady anymore, but they become less usable. There are just so much friction introduced through these. Do you agree in this?
I agree. Yeah, I mean, it sucks when they do become more regulated, but on the other hand, just the more volume that comes in. I mean, I hate the altcoins and I hate the ICOs and all the other stuff as much as anybody, but there is a part of me that on occasion I step back and I go, man, the government fiat is such a scam that it's hard to argue that even like what's the like CryptoKitties or what's the worst scam out there doesn't compare favorably, as far as the fundamentals go, to the scam that's government fiat. So I think the more people that are moving over, I think fiat getting digitized, or USDT or whatever, whatever the different versions of US dollar denominated tokens are. I think that's all good stuff, even though it's probably going to blow up at some point. I mean, I still feel like the temptation is way too strong. There might be enough good in the process of getting people to be able to get in and out of Bitcoin, and to essentially get into Bitcoin to make it a net good. So I don't know. I kind of feel like any adoption is good adoption if it results in people buying more Bitcoin. But yeah, it is kind of a mixed bag.
We are building bridges to the traditional financial system. This was the whole theme of 2014, 15, 16, that we must build a lot of bridges so people can easily buy Bitcoin. I remember I could only buy with local Bitcoins, at 50% above market price. That's how I bought my first coins. It wasn't even one Bitcoin, but doesn't matter. My point is we are building bridges, but the danger of it that on those bridges, the know your customer regulation and the friction is coming through to not just we enable them to buy Bitcoin, but the traditional financial system coming through the bridges and come to Bitcoin world and shaping what's going on. And maybe the next Segwit 2x is going to be more scary than it was last time.
Yeah, I mean, if it's anything right now, I think it's the proof of work change attack. But yeah, that's a good point. Like the more dumb people that we have holding Bitcoin, the more fragile we are. But I think in the long run, a lot of those people come in and then they get educated. So I think that's what we're doing. Hopefully people are buying Bitcoin, they're curious, they're doing Google searches, and they're, listening to people that know what they're talking about, and the revolution will keep marching forward.
Has anybody noticed because I don't look at the price very often, but I kind of gauge like how much action there is based on how many people are like talking about the price, and I really have not seen anyone talk about the price. And so I looked at it, and it's actually been pretty stable around like 7,300, 7,500 for like the past month. It hasn't really moved that much, so it's not as volatile as it has been over the past 6 months or so.
Struggle between bear and whale, or bear and whale, bear and bull, that will be told for ages to come.
When I have a question for you, when does it get boring to post Vegeta memes after 9,000?
Never.
Over.
Never.
To post what? To what kind of memes?
Over 9,000.
It's over 9,000.
Oh, I see. Over 9,000. All right.
I would actually, I want to see like a good week or two where we're just bobbing up and down, like up and above 9,000, and that meme just gets constantly posted. Like, is it gonna stick this time?
Wake me up when it's 90,000.
Well, all right. So the next story, pretty much two stories here. Venezuela has banned the importation of mining equipment. And as a lot of rumors have been going around for quite a while now, since the Petro was announced and started making progress towards the air quote launch, that actual government officials are pretty much taking seized mining equipment and mining for themselves privately and just pocketing the money. And so I thought it was really interesting to see this post here. There's no date or anything. I obviously have no basis to like judge whether this is an official looking document for Venezuela. I was kind of unsure about it when I first saw it, but the translation was pretty much a authorization for Bitmain Technologies Company of Venezuela and another company, CryptoSoft, to import electronic equipment for cryptocurrency mining. But since we have come on air, I have seen Jihan Wu and Bitmain have both tweeted out that they have no branch in Venezuela. This is some kind of fraud. And yeah.
So
honestly,
let
I'm
me get
a
this
little
straight. You were preparing to bash Jihan Wu all day long, and then he's tweeted that he has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I'm really disappointed. I was really looking for a good chance at a bashing Jihan. That's a good thing. We have another story in a minute where I can bash on him for a different reason. Yeah, but
That's
yeah.
good to hear.
So yeah, I guess not really sure what to make of why somebody would post this and fake this if it is indeed fake. But it really has got me wondering if a lot of officials are pretty much seizing mining equipment and just operating it themselves, especially with like the entire move like to establish the petro and try to like gain profit in some way out of the cryptocurrency ecosystem. Like I can't see officials doing that, not trying to establish like lines of supply for purchasing new miners in the future if they intend to actually just keep kind of mining themselves, even though they've made it illegal for the average citizen to do so. Because otherwise, like you're not going to be able to keep this up long term.
Well, my only thought, does Bitmain have any U.S. operations? Because I don't think any of the sanctions that that the U.S. has against Venezuela and the Venezuelan petro token, I don't know if that would cover like a company that ends up selling mining equipment. I don't know if that would have any implications for them, but it might make it a bit uncomfortable if Bitmain has US operations and there's this rumor going around that they're working with the Venezuelan government or they're being approved by the Venezuelan government.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they just opened that Ant Creek subsidiary not too long ago for mining operations in Washington. And I'm not entirely sure the specifics of the connection here, but I know that there are resellers for Bitmain equipment incorporated in the US. But yeah, I mean, because we know like they've been shipping like ant miners to Venezuela. Like almost all of
Bitcoin.
I mean like previously in the past, like there have been ant miners shipped to Venezuela, like in all of the like busts for people stealing power, and like more recently with just like mining in general, like most of the machines actually seized were ant miners. So we know at some point like they've been shipping things. So I'm not really sure.
So
like
they are only
how
banning the mining, not the usage of Bitcoin or something like that. Is that correct?
I'm not actually sure like the legal situation regarding Bitcoin itself, but like mining has been banned.
I mean, there are 8. I just looked it up. There are 8 Bitcoin full nodes in Venezuela. One of them is Fundación Centro Nacional de Innovación Tecnológica or something like that. So that looks pretty government-funded stuff. I don't know.
But it's like, you know, yeah, Jihan and Bitmain are denying the legitimacy of this paperwork. Like, I'm not really sure at all what the like consequences or basis of enforcement would be for shipping anything there because of American subsidiaries. I mean, I could see potentially like American subsidiaries being penalized or like denied like the ability to do something because of that, but I don't really see anything they could do to Bitmain itself. And yeah, it's just totalitarian governments are not nice places, and I'm generally very suspicious of shitty people potentially dealing with them. You know, shitty people tend to surround themselves with shitty people. All right. You guys want to slide along though? Try and get through.
I don't know what shitty people you're talking about, because I think these guys are just trying to give to the poor. So
best friend. All right. So another thing going on in Venezuela is pretty much a Bcash meetup that I think in the end had like 79 people attend. Is trying to draw in people by giving away free Bcash. And like nowhere on here did they actually state like the amounts or how much was being given away or anything. But like given the next thing I'm going to touch on, like I think this is kind of fucked up that in a country that's literally being just destroyed by a lunatic socialist dictator, where a lot of people don't even have consistent access to electricity, like can't afford to feed themselves. Like there's like literally food shortages in the country itself, are trying to take advantage of this situation to bribe people who are starving, who are living in this shithole, into supporting or promoting Bcash because they're getting free money while their country is falling apart. And I mean, like nowhere near in the same vein, but you know, kind of close is the shit going on in Africa, where people this account Eat BCH is pretty much just posting transaction IDs and blocks and saying that they are, you know, feeding this village in Sudan, I believe it was. And like this is also like this is fucked up. Like you know, a friend of mine was kind of looking into this, and like they have a page out there where they post like, you know, what they're buying, blah blah blah. They're claiming to be feeding like hundreds, maybe 1,000 people, and they're buying like 60 eggs. So like they're making these outrageous claims about how many people that they're actually helping here. And one of the only sources of protein in all the shit they're buying is just 60 eggs. Like break that up among, I don't know, 100 people. That's like, no, that's not a proper amount of protein. Like they're just filling shit in with vegetables and rice. Like this is not the nutrition that these people need. It's not enough fucking protein. And just the way they're having them hold this fucking piece of paper up. Like, look at us doing the good thing, everybody. When they're literally, it just seems like buying a fucking couple weeks worth of groceries, throwing it to a village and going, hey, you're not going to be hungry for maybe a day. Look at how good we are. Like, they're not doing anything to, I don't know. Why not just buy chickens?
You know,
they lay
social
eggs.
Justice warrior.
No, I'm being serious. Like if you're actually trying to help these people, not just take a photo opportunity, why are you not buying them chickens that will sustainably lay eggs, that will give you consistent source of protein? Why are you not buying them water filtration shit? You're not solving anything. You're making them feel good for a day to go, look at Bcash.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with anybody giving anything, right? Like they can throw them 2 eggs, and that's better than not giving them anything. But it reminds me of the scam that the U.S. runs, right? We have trade embargoes on Africa. We won't let them sell rich countries corn, right? Like Europe and North America completely will not, with rare exception, accept any agricultural imports from Africa. So we keep them poor because that's the normal stepping stone to build up towards a more advanced economy, is to go through sort of agricultural phase. And then we, put pictures of them on TV, and, the IMF sends them some money, and we work out deals with dictators and drop off some buckets of rice. Usually when they have just started, we usually drop off like, a few tons of corn right after some farmer has tried to scrape together a way to grow corn and just destroy that part of the economy too. And then we get to feel good about ourselves. So I don't care that like the Bcash guys are throwing money to people in Africa. I think that's a very small good in a much greater evil, which is they're slowing the adoption of a secure money that would prevent things like trade embargoes and war and all of the little dictators that are fleecing the people over there. Because Bcash is an insecure money, it can never be a secure money. All it can do is slow the adoption of Bitcoin. It can't do anything useful. So they're, unfortunately it's like it's a pretty commonly trod path to really screw over the poor in the process of making it look like you're taking care of them. So that's the problem that I have with it. But as far as the specific thing that they're doing, yeah, I'm sure they're exaggerating it, but that's a very small harm compared to slowing the adoption of Bitcoin.
No, it's not. It's you don't just you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. You teach a man to fish, he'll feed himself for a lifetime. You don't just do something to virtue signal and try to make yourself look charitable to help somebody. You try to actually help them help themselves. But I mean, like this, I don't know, personally, I just think this is despicable. And I'm going to dive right in at my second swing at Jihan. Oh, yeah. So there is a shitcoin out there, Bytom, that just launched its mainnet back in April. And literally a day after the mainnet launched, Bitmain rolls out ASICs for Bytom. Literally a day. So they either were collaborating with developers to actually get this out of the market this fast, or just looking at what was publicly available, were able to just slap together an ASIC that literally was on the market a day after the cryptocurrency's actual network launches. Now, there's a few different things with this. They were advertised at 750 hashes a second, when a lot of people in China are complaining they're only doing 500 to 600. And like at the larger you scale that up, the more you are completely fucking that business's cost analysis for even starting this mining operation in the first place. As well, there are people who are getting these miners, and the fans are showing up dusty. So either one, Bitmain is doing some really crazy shit, like just having these run until literally the second before they ship, throw them in a box and ship them out. Or they're just slapping these together with random old used pieces. Literally just fucking ghetto ASIC mining rig, and boom, throw it out there for a premium. And I mean, this is this is just the worst fuck up I've seen as far as misadvertising out of this company. And I do get that, there are complications when you're kind of tapering out a new chip design. It's pretty much just molding something and then refining that process as you go. So there is margins of error in the beginning. But Bitmain has always like hit its fucking advertised rate. Like as much as I despise the company, as much as I think they've done some ridiculously shady things, they usually put the hardware out that works as it's advertised. Completely didn't hear. And then just the potential that they're literally just grabbing random used pieces from shit that they're not even cleaning and slapping together the machine to ship off, or just not doing anything whatsoever to keep the storage environment clean, or whatever the hell it is to that. Like, it's ridiculous. And the rate at which like they just keep pumping out more and more shitcoin ASICs, like it just looks to me like a mad scramble to just amass as much capital in a short term as you can. Like, he knows that he's not going to be able to hold this monopoly if people like us are right and Bitcoin ends up the dominant thing that kills everything, and we don't do something stupid like change the proof of work. Like, his monopoly will be chipped away at over time, and he's just scrambling to soak up as much capital as he can.
Yep, sounds good, man.
The worst thing about this is that it's working. It's working for him. He's making a lot of money, you know, and that's what's really in our ass, that, you know, a company that has zero ideas, zero principles, zero discipline, just wants to make money, and it's fucking working for him. You know,
don't be that harsh on him. I mean, these guys got in, they invested billions of dollars probably into ASIC manufacturing when other people wouldn't. And they produced a lot of useful shit, right? Like, in spite of the fact that they're evil bastards, they served the market and they made the world a much better place by shipping all those ASICs. I know they tried to do all kinds of evil stuff, right? They tried to put backdoors in their miners. They are responsible for Bcash and all those sort of things. That's all the evil that they did. But the reason that they've been rewarded from the market isn't from that. The reason they've been rewarded from the market is all of the good things that they did that we shouldn't just completely discount.
All of the good things. Name one.
They invested in ASICs when other people wouldn't.
I'll give you one. No,
that's good, because ASICs
I was able
network.
to get a bunch of S1s when I bought near the top on the way down from Mount Gox, and quadruple my fucking Bitcoin holdings to stay flat in fiat value, which is probably the only reason I'm still in Bitcoin right now, because I didn't lose a fuck ton of money on it right now.
Thank you, Jihan. I appreciate the good that you did. You're a good man in some ways. You're still a bastard in many others, though. That's the right attitude to have about it. We can't freak out and want to like destroy the market and think that it's not working. We just got to look at the fact that it rewards people when they do good, and it punishes them when they do evil. And sometimes there's a big lag there too. But it's the most efficient system we've got. And honestly, I mean, he did more, I think, than probably any other person in the world to accelerate the commoditization of ASICs. And we have to have commoditized ASICs to have a secure network that's government hard. So I think we got to, you know, the world's complicated, but we got to keep that in mind.
But guys, why are we even talking about the pros and cons of Jihan and Bitmain in a logical way? We should just do what Zuko does and do, you know, what we feel. Like, do we feel that he's telling the truth?
Well, he hasn't sent me my check this month, so I don't feel anything right now.
He didn't say he's lying, so yeah, man. It feels like the truth, man.
I don't verify anything that anyone tells me because I just trust people. So I feel he's telling the truth because I don't know otherwise.
I love the feel of this $30,000 check in my fingertips. It feels good.
All right, so I'm gonna skip this next one in the interest of time, and it not really being current news. But there's a really funny story in the show notes about some miner in Taiwan for everybody to check out. But beyond that, this is actually something I'm really excited to see. GMO is building a system called crypto chips that they're going to be rolling out in a game of theirs called Whimsical War to pretty much build in actual crypto rewards for like different accomplishments or rankings, or like whatever kind of success mode you want to reward in a video game. And they're going to just be rolling it out for Bitcoin for now. But like, did they want to kind of do this as a generalized system that you can plug into any game out there? And I just think like this is really interesting to look at, because like one of the dynamics, just I don't care where you sit on the political spectrum. One of the serious problems in the economy going forward this century is just the process of automation being able to cut out the need for people doing jobs. And I don't think that's inherently a problem at all, because like that this is what markets do. Markets get destroyed or shrink or contract, and then new ones are created. And I just feel like a lot of people have trouble grappling with like that reality and how things are going to change the more things are automated by machines. Like just thinking like a job, like I go drive this truck, I go work this cash register, I sit in this office and crunch this data. And they don't think outside the context of that. And it's when you really look at it, like video games, for instance, are becoming a huge professional thing nowadays. Like in a lot of places and parts of the world, it's literally looked at like a professional like sports thing. And like this is one of those avenues, is like this is a way people could legitimately earn money or bring in revenue, is just getting good at video games. And if you like, I mean, like the more like I think about this, like you can work this into products with just like a fucking tail off curve. Like there's a small group of people who would be making most of the money. Just it's a game, like winner takes all, like it's a competition. But like this, you could work these kinds of things into advertisement. You could like leverage this kind of stuff into sales. And it's just like an example of like being able to build cryptocurrency into things, opening up whole new ways of people earning a living that I just think are like so weird and out there compared to what most people are used to in the world today. They don't even really consider it. But like this is just a single example of one of these kinds of like areas. And you have one of the like biggest companies in Japan going nuts on Bitcoin, like working on building this out. And like this is just like a really fucking awesome positive thing, I think.
I agree. I think it's pretty cool. I mean, I was trying to explain to somebody just recently that that the whole cypherpunk strategy is to try to create basically a gulch in cyberspace, right? Where we can exchange goods and we can buy and sell, and we can do it in a way that's violence free, coercion free, because governments can't touch us, and eventually that will spill out into the real world. This is exactly that, right? These guys are going to be putting it in games, and it's Bitcoin, and it's not some crap coin. It's not Microsoft points or some bull crap. It's actually Bitcoin. And I think it's also worth noting that this wouldn't be practical on any kind of scale a year ago, right? Without Lightning, this just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense on any other coin either. Like any other coin without a good layer 2 solution couldn't securely scale either. So pretty awesome.
But it's just like, it's a perfect example, like with how prominent the attitude that like, oh my God, the robots are coming, the government needs to do something. Like this is what markets do. Like they open up new niches when old niches contract. And people just need to use their imagination a little bit to really think about the kind of niches something like Bitcoin can open up, because there are fuck tons of them. But next story.
Jobs are not a good thing. We don't want jobs. We want to destroy jobs as fast as possible, because jobs is just a different way of saying it. A pile of problems that we have to solve constantly. So people have been programmed to think that they want jobs. We don't want jobs. We want to destroy jobs. And then, you know, your job will be teaching the neighbor how to shoot a bow and arrow or something, right? If there aren't problems, it's not like we're going to run out of things to do.
I'm waiting for the first Bitcoin themed video game, Red Dead Wrecked.
All right, though. Moving along. Nopara's battery's running a little low, and we are going to make this time limit. God damn it! So, Baidu, the Chinese version of Google, is playing around with using a blockchain to kind of do a version history of all edits on the platform. And you know, normally this would be the stupid, pointless thing. You know, Git does this. What are you doing? But in the context of China, like, this is kind of fucking disturbing to me, because the entire reasoning behind this being done is the fact that anybody can edit things. And so obviously, if you pay any attention to Wikipedia, there are all kinds of factions, different philosophies on how things should be edited, edit wars going on, constantly changing things. And to see a Chinese company like Baidu look at applying this technology in this way really scares the shit out of me, because the only direction I see this going is people have to identify themselves publicly to their real identity. And then every change to any piece of information made on this Chinese version of Wikipedia has your actual identity tied to it. And in a place like China, with their cultural history, with their government's history over the past half century, like, that is terrifying. That is like, if you say anything or try to propagate any information the government doesn't approve of, the entire thing is Merkelized, tied to your ID, and they will know instantly.
But look at the other side of the coin. I mean, come on, the Chinese government's constantly taking off things. Tiananmen Square, he's trying to delete history. I mean, I don't know how blockchain would solve it, but this would make it harder for them. You know, you can detect censorship.
Well, but no part. Think about it. Like, in China, like, you're Baidu works with the Chinese government. And in a system like this, if you just add an identification requirement on top of it, every single person trying to spread information they don't want spread, in trying to do it through this, will have their ID tied to it. The government will be able to be instantly aware of it. Like, all of the detective work to track down who's spreading things they don't want spread is done. It's just a database that they look at.
No, I think I just don't understand the system correctly. So yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't clear to me either, just from the news story, whether it's really all about identity or if it's just, I mean, time stamping and
the identities,
hashing
like,
data is
kind
kind
of speculating where this is going. Like, the article is just like, this is pretty much a version history for article edits.
Ah, cool.
Well, as someone who is, you know, working on a system of revision controlled journalism, I want to point out the main differences with how I would implement this. First of all, I mean, it would be an option, but ideally, I am not planning to have this system store actual journalist pieces on the blockchain, because that would just take up way too much space, and I think that's overkill. At most, it would be hashes, or using open timestamps, which is very minimal. And also, I would definitely not agree with forcing people to reveal their identities. My plan is for the system to be identity optional, just like Bitcoin is, that if you want to use a pseudonym, that works. If you want to use your real name, that's fine. If you want to not use a pseudonym and just use a bunch of numbers, that's also okay. Like, I would never want to force identity onto the system, because I think that's not as necessary. The whole point for me of revision control journalism is that your identity shouldn't matter. You should be using as much open public data as possible so that the identity of the person who's doing the investigation and writing about a topic or a news story their identity should not matter. They should be able to make their point and provide evidence, and their identity shouldn't be important.
Which is what worries me, seeing this kind of thing played with in China, like with them piloting like the social credit program they are in the one city it's live in, just their attitude towards crypto in general over the last year, like the way they're rolling out like new surveillance technology plugged into deep learning. Like I don't see it going any other way than like you put your name on it, and if we don't like it, we're gonna knock on your door in the middle of the night. Yeah.
On the other hand, there are internal factors too. Chinese people are not very happy about what they are doing, how their politicians are dealing with them, and there is a real question that what's going to be the next system of China after the debt bubble goes down, and is it going to be a worse or a better one? And maybe if it's a better one, then maybe they will start moving into a direction that we're gonna like it. We'll see.
I hope, but I'm not holding out hope. But I guess slide into this final story. All right, guys, we've identified Satoshi Nakamoto. It's Gavin Andreessen. Mystery solved, everybody. It's the final story. Gavin Andreessen is Satoshi Nakamoto.
Wait, Gavin is a girl?
All right. In the interest of time, that concludes our final story. We are in the thought loading process. JW.
All right. So my final thought is we're making progress on mathbot.com. It's the for-profit open source project to teach kids math by programming a robot. You can take a look at it at mathbot.com, but I'm kind of feeling a little bit stressed right now because there's so many tasks to be done. So if anybody is interested in doing anything, like we don't really have an email account that people can email for help. So like setting that up and responding to people that are stuck would be awesome. And there's probably 1,000 things like that need to be done. So even if you're not a developer, if you have any interest in this project and have, anything from want to be like almost a co-founder sort of person to just throw a couple hours at it once a week, hit me up on Twitter at weathermanIam. Or jwweatherman.com. I've got like a contact form. You can hit me up there too.
Get those kids learning math. And Janine, the thought that you tried to interject into the proper episode is now allowed.
The reason I wanted to do that is because yesterday I brought it up. I think it was yesterday. I brought it up in the context of Monero getting banned in Japan because there was this story that was actually in the New York Times that apparently there are crow patrols or crow teams that they literally just go around this southern island in Japan destroying crow nests because apparently they're kind of a nuisance in the city. And there was a story in the New York Times about how these crows are so smart that they actually build decoy nests so that when this patrol is going around destroying the nest, they destroy fake ones. They don't find the real ones. Then it's a problem because they just keep building more decoys, and it's really hard to find where the real nests are. And I said that this is what if you're a Monero user in Japan, you should consider making like decoy meetups, and maybe even there's a mechanism you could do decoy transactions and stuff to throw the Japanese authorities off. I think Monero should adopt the crow as its mascot.
Come on, you know that Monero users are not as smart as a crow, so that doesn't make sense.
Makes perfect sense. You just go find a shop for coffee with a bunch of regulars, and then you just make fake posts on the internet saying, "Look for me, I'm wearing this," and the cops are on the wrong trail. But All right, JW's got a jet while the rest of us finish our thought loading.
All right, thanks guys. It was fun.
Catch you later, JW. All right,
Well,
now can I locate my thoughts?
It doesn't really matter if Monero users are as smart as crows. I mean, I don't know of any Bitcoiner who could get bitten by a rattlesnake and just sleep it off and be fine. So, and yet we still have a honey badger as a mascot. So, the features of the mascot do not necessarily have to match.
Damn it. Okay, I can't get the image of a honey badger fighting a snake out of my head.
I
Nor
have
can I
have
my
a few
thoughts
thoughts
now.
I have a few.
All right.
Let's see. Yeah, so just a reminder, everyone, Poloniex still not letting people take their money off the exchange unless they get verified. So just want to remind everyone that exchanges are extremely safe right now because you can't even get your own money off of them.
That's the next level security shit.
Man, if I can't get my coins, nobody can get my coins. They're safe. All right, thought half loaded. I give up. Okay. So Cointelegraph apparently had an ad up in Times Square it was just no coiner, and underneath it, people who don't have Bitcoin. And so naturally, Vitalik Buterin has to virtue signal about how he does not like this no coiner insult. No, people who do not hold crypto tokens are not uncool losers. They are people with very reasonable heuristics and not personally participating in an industry they do not understand, and there are many justifiable reasons to be wary of. Let's keep in mind this is literally the person
I'm not a robot.
Dude, he coined Bitcoin maximalist as an insult to condescendingly talk down to people who think that Bitcoin is the most viable long-term project. the guy virtue signaling about no coiner is literally the guy who invented one of the first Bitcoin insults. Let's get a golf clap. Hypocrisy. All right. Any final thought from you, Nopar?
Yes, I just want to share one of my fear with you guys, that I've been working on Bitcoin privacy for 3 years now, and I learned a lot, and I've been building this software, and it's going to be released in a couple of months. Actually, we are going to releasing it in the 10th anniversary of Bitcoin. And, you know, people have to use it, at least 100 people, because I cannot be anonymous by myself. So I just want to ask you guys that if we release, when we release it, then jump on and provide liquidity, at least until I can launder out all my Bitcoins from 2013 I acquired on the Silk Road. That's my final thoughts.
Anonymity requires a crowd of crows.
All right, and I guess final thought before we sign out for the night, guys. The story might have been fake news, but the meme will live forever. Till next time, guys.